What's up guys, and today I finally bring you the mods that I've done to the Knights of Ren transport, aka the Night Buzzard. So I've been waiting for this new desk to arrive before I modded this set because I wanted to use this new desk as a space to make tutorials, and I wanted to make a tutorial for the mods that I was going to do to the Night Buzzard. And I was finally able to do that just 2 days ago, and I can't tell you guys how happy I am to finally be able to play with this thing with the mods that I did on it. Alrighty guys, so after all this wait, let's finally get into it, and we'll start up at the front. So starting up at the front, you can very clearly see that I've changed the way that this grill is shaped and the way it's held on there a little bit. I added in some extra bits, some nice angled plates, and then some slope bricks down there to help fill in that empty space. Because originally, like, the teeth made out of these, like, grill pieces, they were there, but it was just kind of hovering in an empty space, so it didn't quite look right. So now with all these extra slopes and some extra plating, it kind of fills up the space a little bit more. And the way that it's hooked on here, is actually changed quite a bit. So we're going to go ahead and lift up one of the flaps, and you can see the big interior space we've added on, but we'll go over that later. So the connection, if you watch my tutorial that's going to be coming out on Thursday, overall remains the same. It's just shortened, and then I've included landing gear in between. So you can see that the landing gear down here does move. The proper position for it is all the way up at the front, and then it's just about level with the one in the back, and then with this grill piece pushed all the way in, because it is now on a hinge to accommodate for the landing gear, so you have to make sure the top is pushed all the way in, and then you can have your landing gear sliding out. When it's landed down beneath you, this is how it'll look with the landing gear in the proper position, but if you want it to be hidden underneath the ship, the only thing that will change is that the front end will sag just like 1 or 2 degrees below the back end, but then the landing gear is hidden from view. So we got a little glimpse of the interior space. Now let's get in there. So the way to get inside is actually the same way you get inside the original interior space on the set, just with this little hatch piece. And you can go right in there. You don't have full access though. You do have a few studs that are blocked off by the top of this hinge here. But to get that off, I went ahead and added some plates in there. And then this is just sitting on a little bit of a stud connection on only this right side, so you can peel it right off. But now to get a view of the details in there, we'll take out our Knight of Ren and we'll see what I can show you. So I went ahead and popped off the interior cabin to get a better look in there because it was going to be kind of a tight squeeze to get some good shots in there. So on the front end, I've taken off a little bit of ladder pieces and the control panel here. You can see that I have a little bit of a control panel in here. I like to think that this is a gunner seat because you see 2 turrets on the outside, and when you're flying the ship in space, you can't use the hatches open because then everyone inside suffocates. So I like to think of this as a small interior gunner seat. We have a little telephone on the right side, some studs, and some translucent bricks to help simulate a dashboard. And then on the set out of the box, the interior space did feature a ladder, and I carried that little bit over, so it kind of makes sense that they can actually get in and out of that top hatch. So on the original set, the rear interior space does have a ladder, and I did decide to carry that over because it looked cool and it made sense inside the ship and in play that they actually have a ladder to get in and out of their interior area. And then just to the right of the ladder, you can see the control panel I used that the minifigures would use to open the hatch. I put the blue on the top for opening the hatch because you would want to hit that as you're climbing up. And then I put the red on the bottom because if you're climbing down, you could very easily kick it with your feet to close it right on top of you so nobody comes in behind you. So that pretty much covers the entire interior area. If you didn't notice, the walls on the front half near this control panel are actually like these dented in wall bits. I did that so that I could potentially fit 2 minifigures on the control panel there to simulate firing both turrets. So then just behind that interior space, we actually have a small jail cell sitting there. And this is a relatively simple build. If you have a keen eye, you'll actually realize that this is pretty much just straight up ripped off the Force Awakens Millennium Falcon. I actually took this just right off the bottom, and I snapped it on the bottom of my Night Buzzard, and it happened to fit. So I added it as a feature. So this is your small little jail cell. As you can see, it does fit Rey, which is a minifigure that came with the set. So it all does work out and kind of fits together in a small story. But if you, for whatever reason, wanted to fit a Knight of Ren in there, you could totally snap one of those guys prisoner in their own ship. Now going even further back, behind that jail cell, there is now a pilot seat interior space on the rear. And I designed this as well so it could snap off so you could very easily get it off and play. So this entire rear interior cabin is actually a part of the landing gear. The landing gear is attached to it. So when you set it down, when you take this off, it is just going to have to rest on the engines. But getting into this interior space, you can see it's kind of a tight fit, and that's because I'm using that one piece that made up the front interior section on the set out of the box. But now that we got our minifigure out of there, you can see that I gave him a small little control panel, and if I had the pieces, I would add the little antenna bricks to simulate some joysticks on there. And then you can also see the studded and then the tiled up connection that I used there to snap it onto the bottom of the ship. But overall, other than that, there's not really much to go over in there. He does have to sit with his legs all the way at the front on those 4 studs and then leaned all the way back to be able to fit in there, but he does fit. And then on the sides here, you can see that I added 1x2 bricks just above the Technic. That's because if I didn't do that, very easily in play, when you were ripping the cabin off the bottom or putting it back on, you would actually move around the Technic bricks that are sitting in there attached to the landing gear, and then it would just completely mess up, and it was really hard to put back together every time. And then on the back side of it, we just have some smoothing out detailing to help fill out that rear empty space. But snapping that back on, we just ram it right up against the prison cell, and then snap it right back in. And then going on to the rear underside, you can see that I added some slopes in here to help fill out that empty space, just so less of the Technic structure was revealed, and the black really takes away a whole lot of light, so you don't really notice more of the Technic that's around it. And then the only mod that I didn't do in my tutorial video, and that's because I forgot, is I took off those rounded 1x2 bricks that were hiding underneath the engines, and I put the translucent orange pieces right on the 1x6 that was sitting here. I did that just because I think it's a whole lot of a cleaner look, and the engines look like they have a whole lot more plume and power behind them. And if you're wondering what I did with those 1x2s, I just snuck it underneath these grill pieces right here. You can barely see it hiding in there. But other than that, that's pretty much all I've done. The 2 hatches on the top remain the same. You can still fit a minifigure in there just as you would before. You can still use them just as you would before. So I hope you guys did enjoy these mods that I did to the Night Buzzard. The set out of the box, it isn't horrible, but to call it a transport and then have it be able to only fit 1 figure, maybe 2 if you're really cramming them in there, it's kind of misleading. But if you're like me, you always want to mod your sets and you always want to push them just a little bit further. And the idea with this was to still make it like structurally sound, because on this rear area, this is a common grabbing point when you're playing with it. I had to make sure that the pilot area was very fashionably secured, so when I'm playing with it and swooshing with it, the pilot seat doesn't come off and then the entire ship falls down and breaks. Overall though, I'm really happy with these mods, and I'm really happy that I was able to keep the landing gear on there as posable and usable landing gear rather than just sticking them on by a studded connection. Alrighty, I hope you guys did enjoy, and if you enjoyed the mods, you can actually build them yourselves. I do have a tutorial coming up on Thursday here, so be on the lookout for that. So we've pretty much covered the bases from there. Like I said previously, I hope you enjoyed, and if you want to suggest any alternate builds of any sets in the Marvel, Star Wars, or any line that you'd like to, go ahead and do that down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace, fellas.